News Radio 700 WLW.
So do you sleep alone? I mean, are you in a marriage or a relationship and you're sleeping alone? More than a third of Americans say they occasionally or consistently sleep in another room from their partner. Sleep divorce is what it's known as. This cannot be healthy. I'm sure there are compelling reasons why. Snoring, somebody that hogs the covers, somebody that's up and down and over and out during the night. But, I mean, that can't be good, right? I mean, 33% of the people that were surveyed in this particular survey, a group of 2,005 adults, 43% of millennials engage in sleep divorce, 30% of Gen Xers, Gen Zers, 22%, and baby boomers. You got to love baby boomers. They still know what love is all about. They were at the bottom of the list. 43%, 43% of millennials, 22% of baby boomers. What's going on here? Why are people engaging in sleep divorce? Is this as bad as divorce or could lead to divorce? Standing by is somebody we've had on the show many times before. It's always great when Jennifer Hargrave can join us. She is a family law attorney. She's seen countless couples. And when they come to her, she wants to save the marriage, not dissolve the marriage, save it if at all possible. And it's great to have her on the show again. And Jennifer Hargrave, how are you on this glorious day?
I am doing really well. It's great to be here with you.
I'm glad you're here. Do you engage in sleep divorce, Jennifer? Are you someone that just says, I've had enough? The old man sounds like a thunderstorm every night. I got to go. I mean, do you engage in this yourself? Just a personal question here.
Well, thanks for starting off with the personal.
Absolutely. We get right to it here, Jennifer. We don't beat around the bush.
That's right. You know, there are times when sleeping in separate rooms is actually a healthy way to handle the fact that, you know, opposites attract. And so it's not at all unusual that you have people who, you know, you've got a morning owl married to a night owl. You've got somebody likes it cold married to somebody likes it hot. And you've got, you know, snoring is a common problem. So I think it can actually be healthy if you're intentional about it. And, you know, you from time to time or maybe regularly want to sleep in a separate room. But what I think happens most of the time is that, you know, you end up sleeping in separate rooms to avoid the issue. You're not communicating and you're building up a lot of resentment. And that resentment is a relationship killer. So, you know, if your partner is a snorer, there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and doing what you need to do in order to get a good night's sleep. Yeah, right? When you're not well rested.
Yeah, everything else is off if you're not well rested. You're cranky during the day and things like that. But in all sincerity, this is a major thing what couples fight about. I'm looking at this here. It's 14% of couples have problems with one or the other or both. I mean, you could do it in shifts. One snores for 3 hours and then the other one does. But that's a major problem. Do you act when you practice your business, when you're in there and you're the compassionate family law attorney, do you hear people talking about this?
I mean, sure. I think most often, I mean, nobody comes in and says, I want a divorce because my spouse snores, but they do want a divorce because they're leading very separate lives. Right. And it's not at all uncommon that people who are getting divorced have not been in the same bedroom for many years. Right. And that's why I say, you know, if you're at a place where sleeping in another room or separate from your spouse makes sense, you have to be really intentional about making sure you're finding ways to connect with your partner, that you're scheduling time for intimacy, right? That's an important part of marriage, and that you're having good communication about the issues.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, you know far better than I, but it would seem like the two things that couples fight about the most are money and sex. And my guess is that if you're sleeping apart, you're not having sex. You're certainly not having it with someone else, but but I would think that that's a major problem too, because if it's snoring, if it's being a cover hog, whatever causes that person to leave the marital bed and go to another bed, then you've got a problem there.
I mean, yes, but not necessarily. So I really want to point out there are people who sleep in separate rooms. I think a lot of couples do this, and it's healthy. It's how you love somebody, is to make sure you take care of yourself and take care of your needs.
Really?
But where it's not healthy is when you're not talking about it. Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, I know a lot of people when we sit around and talk about it. It's like, if he wakes me up snoring, I just get up and go in the other room because I love him.
But isn't that different isn't it different than habitually sleeping in another room? Like we're just doing this, or if it happens, you do it, but not every night. I mean, I think that's a problem there.
I think the problem is when you're not talking about it, and the problem is when you're not finding time for the intimacy and the connection, right? Yeah. But you could be sleeping in the same bed with your partner and not have any intimacy or connection,
And the same survey said 78% of marriages are like that. No, it didn't.
Exactly.
But no, you're absolutely right. And therein lies, I guess, the third leg of the stool, and that's communication. I mean, you have sex, you have money, and communication.
Yeah.
And communication probably trumps the other two, because if you're at least talking about it, there's a road to a solution.
I think, a bad communication is the disease that will manifest itself in symptoms of no sex, of money issues. I mean, like the root cause of all of that comes down to communication. And it's because I think we really don't communicate well. We probably, a lot of families grew up with parents who didn't communicate well, so our family of origin doesn't help teach us that. We don't necessarily get that training and education in school. And so we go out into the world and, we don't know how to share what we need in a relationship. We don't know how to ask for it. And, what we end up doing is trying to demand that our partner change to make us feel better. And that's where the conflict happens. Is when we're trying to make somebody do something different.
Yeah, I think my parents communicated well. They were married for 58 years, but I just remember my dad grunting a lot. Like he would have the same grunt whether he was asked a question or told something. It was just a grunt. So I guess my mother knew what the difference was, but yeah, I totally agree with it. But so when you're again, I want to make sure I've got a handle on this. If you're sleeping away from your partner, it may not be the toxic thing that breaks up a marriage, because there are other ways, whether it's intimacy or communication or whatnot, where you can walk. I just sense that there could be some people listening say, well, we haven't slept in the same bed for the last 20 years. We're still married. Am I in trouble? So it can work, right?
It really can work, and it can be a good way to avoid an actual divorce, is to, take up sleeping in separate spaces and just to acknowledge this is what we need to be healthy, to get a good night's rest. But again, what I come back to is what you have to make sure is that you're finding the time for the intimacy and the connection, because that's what solidifies a good relationship, right? And so if you're sleeping in separate beds, like who cares, right? I mean, nobody cares where you go to get that good night's sleep. But just make sure you're finding other ways to connect with your partner.
Yeah, you're not suggesting.
Not in the same bed. You're
not suggesting that when it comes to having time for intimacy, that both people get their books out to see when they're available. Oh, wait a minute, 1:45 on a week from Tuesday. How's that look for you? You're not suggesting that, are you?
Hey, some people they like to schedule everything. They're really good at block calendaring, and it gets on the calendar. That's awesome. Other people like more spontaneity. Probably the two are opposites are married to each other, so you get a little bit of both.
Be the one that says, "Hey, can we push that to next week?" Be the one that says that. See how that goes. Yeah, we laugh about all of this, but I mean, your goal, and we've talked before, is you want marriages to work. Sometimes they're irretrievably broken. Sometimes it's not going to work. But you're somebody that if you've got a couple in front of you, you want to see if there's any way that this thing can work, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not my job to assess. If somebody comes into me and wants a divorce, I help them get a divorce. But if somebody comes in and says, I don't know if this is the right thing for me, I'm definitely happy to talk with them and help see if there are resources that we can, that will help them better answer that question. Something like discernment counseling can be a really good tool. But, at the end of the day, I really value family, and I know how wonderful it is to have a family that works, and sometimes it's best for the marriage to dissolve in order for that family to work. But if a marriage can be saved, by all means, save it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess tonight I'll just take the lock off the door and let her back in. I mean, it's just maybe that's good. That's
very big of you, Ken. Very big of you.
Jennifer Hargrave. She is at jhfamilylaw.com. Stay well. We'll do this again. Thank you for bringing some insight to this. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.